Good evening. Tonight, The Invisible Man returned to our DVD player for The Invisible Man Returns. But before I get to that, just a few words on the other things that we watched. We watched the season 2 finale of The Boys, which is arguably also about monsters, as any superhero thing is about monsters. The 20th century superheroes were 19th century monsters, so it counts. And we also watched Haunter, which is an Abigail Breslin um, ghost movie. And Abigail Breslin is, I think, someone to look for if you're looking for good off the beaten track horror, because Haunter was pretty good. It was an interesting ghost story, and she was the center of it. And she's also in lots of other movies, many of which are probably horror movies. But in particular, the movie Maggie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. She is slowly transforming into a zombie, but her father, Arnold Schwarzenegger, wants to save her and also wants to prevent other people from killing her. So look for Abigail Breslin if you're tired of the usual Halloween fare. She's a good indicator. But the main event was The Invisible Man, and the main event with Invisible Man movies, more than the other classic monster movies, are the special effects. Um, Makeup with Frankenstein and the Mummy and the Wolfman, and probably the Phantom of the Opera, but not really special effects. Nice sets, interesting dialogue and ideas, but not really special effects. They pretty much play out pretty without much help from the editors. Not to disparage editors; they work very hard. It's just that it's what's there is what's there. At least that's the impression I'm getting. But it's not necessarily true with the Invisible Man movies, where they have to, unwrap his head, and it's not there, but he's on a body. I think I mentioned that I learned just a little bit about how they did that with Black Velvet against the Black Velvet backdrop to achieve that. They also had some interesting. There was in this one, um, they're in a lab and doing invisible experiments, and they're naturally doing it on a guinea pig. And but before you see the guinea pig, you see the little harness that the guinea pig has, because the guinea pig is invisible. And the way that they made that move, I don't know, but it looked great. And they had some more. Oh, they did the thing which was mentioned previously, that if the Invisible Man walks through fog, you can see him. They weren't able to do it in a raining scene, which odd therefore that they made a point in the dialogue of saying fog and rain, uh, but they they did it. They did had a police officer blow smoke at him a couple of times, and he just kind of vaguely appeared. He does walk through fog, and it's the police this time are mobilized. They previously dealt with an Invisible Man, and now they're dealing with another. But they have ideas. They've been thinking about it because they already knew it was a possibility, so they're prepared. And they have this spray fog machines of some sort around, and it works to an extent. It works for the audience. We see him in the fog, but unfortunately for one particular policeman, it doesn't work for them seeing him. Um, but great special effects, uh, but also things for the most part. Well, maybe not. But at one point, the composer lyricist Adam Gettle, who wrote most famously probably Floyd Collins, I think, was his, and also um, the Light in the Piazza, which he might have won a Tony for. Don't quote me on that. But he was apparently working on an Invisible Man musical or opera, I'm not sure. Um, and that never materialized, which is somewhat appropriate, but also disappointing, because I think that the stagecraft that would go into a and maybe there are live stage versions of this. I have not discovered them myself. Um, And a few years ago, I was looking into monster-themed musicals, and I did not find any existing Invisible Man musicals. So, uh, but it's so much fun to think, and it's a short, simple story, short, simple original movie. I'm talking about the original movie and the book that it's based on now, not The Invisible Man Returns. I'll get back to that, but it wouldn't take long to put on stage, but the stagecraft would be really interesting. Maybe Julie Taymor could do it. As for this, they do what they can to progress the story. Obviously, they don't use the original Invisible Man in this story. The person who's invisible is a criminal. Well, he's an accused criminal, um, and and he escapes prison by becoming invisible. I missed how he became invisible, but he does know the brother of the original Invisible Man. Um, but the criminal, the person who turns invisible, whose voice is the menacing presence throughout the movie, is Vincent Price. He plays the character, and so it's. I mean, glad we could include a Vincent Price movie in our Halloween viewing. I don't know if there will be another because I don't know what most of these movies cast makeups are. Yeah, I think I said that right. And I don't know. Well, I kind of know what else we'll be watching, but I don't think Vincent Price is in it. So good to have Vincent Price represented. Um, and it's definitely a sequel type story, and I'm not as familiar with it as I am with the original, so I don't have as much to say about the story. I'll watch it again though. It's again great fun to look at. Um, and the movies had started to get to be the length of movies as they are made today, an hour and 40 minutes. This was back down to an hour 20, which is not as short as your Draculas and Frankensteins, but it's nice to have movies that are a manageable length. Not that an hour and a half, an hour 40 isn't manageable, but I like that these are shorter for the most part. Um, now, uh, brief message. This is not a paid advertisement, but I just wanted to note because a week from tomorrow is when Phantom of the Opera comes up on the schedule, and we're going to watch 3 Phantom of the Opera movies that day. Maybe something else in addition, but mostly the 3 Phantom of the Opera movies: the 2004 version, the Lon Chaney version, and the one that came in the box set with Claude Rains, the original Invisible Man. So it is somewhat appropriate to bring this up now. Um, Unfortunately, uh, the schedule of Andrew Lloyd Webber's the shows must go on YouTube musical release didn't square up with that. I guess this weekend is the anniversary of the West End opening, and so he's had a couple of videos. There's a fun one of him talking to Michael Crawford, the original Phantom, that I watched, and there are a couple of others that he's releasing on his other YouTube site. But on The Shows Must Go On is the Royal Albert Hall concert staging. I think it was the 25th anniversary concert, which I've seen, but I'm not going to watch it this weekend because Phantom Weekend is next weekend. Also, I saw the show live on Broadway at the end of January on my birthday or the day before my birthday. The day before my birthday, I'm pretty sure. Um, and that was timed well. So I'm not particularly interested in looking at a staged version of it on a stage, although we are going to watch the movie. But I wanted to mention it because if you're not on my schedule, so you could watch it. If you're watching this, you can watch that, and I recommend it. I saw it on PBS when I think it originally aired, and it's pretty good. It's not. It's a concert staging, but that means less of the stagecraft, bigger orchestra, bigger chorus, and therefore bigger sound, and that's worth it to look at. It's a similar situation with the movie. They had, they could do more than what they could fit in the Majestic Theatre or Her Majesty's Theatre in London. So I want to recommend watching that, and or any other version of the Phantom of the Opera. So I think that's all I have to say about this and about that. And tomorrow is The Mummy's Hand, I think. And now we're into the 40s. This was in 1940. I think The Mummy's Hand was also 1940. So we're out of the 30s into the 40s. Not that it matters that much. For me, it's the break is that The Wizard of Oz came out in 1939, and this is the first of the monster movies to come out after it. And I think, with the exception of The Phantom of the Opera, they continued on to be in black and white, as most movies did, even though The Wizard of Oz made such a splash in color. So that's the only reason that's notable, really. But I'm looking forward to a new decade and to see how there are a bunch more Invisible Man movies. So I'm curious to see how good the special effects get, how they progress. That's an interesting thing about watching these movies, is seeing kind of the evolution of movie making, the evolution of the characters, like same or similar characters, but better craft and to evolving craft. So that's interesting to see. But for now, have a lovely midnight.